Hey guys, welcome to Power Within with me, Amy, your heart whisperer therapist. I'm a good wife.
Vicky, I'm a queen of rapid hypnosis.
Together with the Eastwoods, and we're going to be covering therapy,
Hypnotherapy,
couples relationship therapy,
hypnosis, and all the other shit in between.
If it's current, if it's relevant,
we'll be covering it. Stay tuned. Hi guys, welcome back to Power Within. Today we're going to start and talk about one of Amy's favourites is couples therapy.
You say my favourites. I get a lot of pride and joy doing couples work. And what day is it today? This will be obviously aired
the 11th.
Quite late, but it's 11th of Feb. Valentine's coming soon. And probably a date that, I don't know if it's because I've become a Scrooge to it or you just follow it, but I don't like celebrating Valentine's Day.
I don't think we've bought a Valentine's Day card for each other for a long time. I'm quite lucky because Amy's birthday is the 13th. So I've always been able to take her away on the 13th and wake up on Valentine's Day.
And blag it.
And blag it. So I've never had to have the extra cost of Valentine's, especially when we were skint.
Yeah, and I've maybe done something different this year. But
Valentine's?
Maybe.
You best not have.
But it's not a date. It's not a date that I want to tell you I love you. I want to tell you 10 times a day, every day. And that isn't to be cheesy. I don't need a day. I don't need flowers to triple in price to buy you flowers for that date. And we wasn't planning on doing this episode today. We've got 2 boys and I've just had a social worker meeting online. And we were talking about Kai's schooling and how happy he is and whatever's going on. He's got himself a little girlfriend.
He's been dating for about 3 months.
I know, but something that I don't think we were really prepared for. But he's head over heels.
Yeah.
And he's had a couple of half days at school and he's took her to the dessert shop. He took her to the chicken shop. And the social worker just says, it'll be costing you money. I said, but the one perk of having 2 mums parenting, they will become gentlemen. And like I said to Kai, you can't have a girlfriend and not treat her kind. I don't want him to think it's all about money. I actually told him that the other day. The opposite is like, you take her on 6 dates. We live in the 20th century. She will then take you on the 7th. That's how I would like it to happen. But it ended up a Pandora trip to town last week. He's bought this, I can't remember what ring it was. Cost a fortune, especially to say he's an 11-year-old.
She's in his phone though as my forever, which is pretty cute.
Yeah.
But I think it is a forever ring or something. Where he like sort of sat with me and Sean is like, Mom, can I get Ava this?
Yeah, and I'm proud of him and he's adorable. We've had to limit his phone time and stuff because he'd be on the phone till midnight if he could. But I do want him to be a gentleman, and I think parenting 2 boys, they see that through us. And we've just discussed we wasn't gonna do this episode, but we're going away. And so it's gonna be Valentine's and couples will reconnect. And part of this message was about successful couple goals. It's all right saying you're a power couple or, people aspire to be you. But what keeps people alive in their couples, in their relationships? And like even when we just Googling on the phone and messing about, it was the 333 222 rule.
Yeah.
Go on a date every 2 weeks. And I know that's not necessarily practical with babysitters or financial, but a date doesn't have to be a fancy dinner. It doesn't have to be an 8 o'clock of a night time. You know what I mean? I remember when we used to walk the dog around Kingshurst Lake and end up in the pub in the afternoon with a tenner. And they were the best days. I looked at a picture the other week. We looked like tramps, but okay, would we have classed that as a date? No, but in hindsight, it was time for us where the rest of the world stood still. And so it was take a date every 2 weeks, take a night away every 2 months. And I think we've got much better at doing this anyway. Take a holiday together every 2 years. Well, we've kind of gone to the point of we're allowed at least one grown-up holiday a year, even if it's like a 3-day trip.
I think we normally do 2. I think we separate that with 6 months in between. So
Okay.
like so
We split our 7 days into 2.
In the May time we go away, and then probably the October we tend to jet off then.
Yeah. And so I sat here just and said, what was one of your best dates?
Well,
And you can't steal mine.
no, I'm not stealing yours, but I remember even when we first started seeing each other, I think I took you to that lake, and I did I bought like a picnic and did like skewers and stuff. Do you remember?
A barbecue.
The little yeah, but it was like them tray barbecues. It's somewhere in Sheffield. And I took you there, and we had a really nice afternoon there with the dog. That was quite a nice day. That was like obviously a cheap date.
But it doesn't have to be about money, does it? And I know my favourite date obviously was further on in our relationship, but was when we were in New York and we went for boxing, spent 4 days in New York, but then you got us the helicopter tour over the Yankee Stadium and
I did it like in an evening, so I love sunset, like most people do, like sunsets and that kind of evening. But it kind of was just where half the sky was still light, and then the other dark was black, and it was, and then there were all the red colours and stuff, and it just covering New York. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and I remember you muffling because
nobody could hear.
Ear defenders on, so you can't hear. But you said to me,
"Will you marry me?
Will you marry me?" And
again,
if we could have landed and married on that strip again, I would have done, because I feel like we're most connected when we're away.
Yeah.
And even though when that means when we're away with the kids and stuff, but like when it's just me and you, you get to almost reset. And then I feel like I just met you again. But if we could have landed on that strip and there'd been a priest or somebody there, instead we ended up going to one of the best bars we've ever been to.
Yeah.
Bitter End.
Bitter End, that's the one.
And it was the stickiest, disgustingest bar. But there's been a lot of famous musicians created from this bar. And if you remember, it was like $10 in, and we didn't really want to pay $10 in.
That was abrupt.
Yeah. Go next door if you just want a beer. But we had a great time. And for me, that was probably the best date we've ever had. If you remember when we first met, and I took you on the big wheel in town.
That was good, yeah.
When I think about it, and I bought a half-size bottle of champagne.
I don't even drink champagne.
But we thought it only went round once, so we kind of necked it, didn't we? And then it went round twice. So then we were pissed before we even got off. And again, it wasn't about money.
We didn't have money even then.
The night was probably 50 quid with the champagne. But dates can be free. You know what I mean? Go on a stroll. Go for a drive. Because the connection is there. And part of this platform is about bringing connection back. We've got a sponsor, Master Travel. She's an independent travel shop. Somebody who will be sharing some of her experiences, probably influence some of you guys to work through her business. But she'll be gifting weekends away, dinners, date nights. So them date nights will come free for some of you for here.
We have to kind of figure out how the competition kind of thing works. As you all know, we just kind of started off, so we'll get there eventually, I'm sure, where we can do date nights, weekends away, and this will all be gifted through Master Travel and obviously Power Within.
Yeah, because when I do couple sessions, one of the biggest things that's lacking, and not even just relationship with couples, when we talk about family members, it's the lack of connection, the loss somewhere down the line. And so the work I do, you have to almost go back to basics of where you first met, what it was that attracted you to each other, and work on that. But one of the things, and you laughed earlier when I mentioned love language, it's been mentioned before. I've not created that term.
Sounds like you just...
I haven't, but how I explain it is almost like a dictionary. Like, imagine we have a discussion and I love you and I want to give you a message, but I'm speaking Spanish and you can't understand me, but you want to understand me. So I'll talk louder and maybe signal, but you still can't understand me because you don't speak Spanish.
But don't you think that's come over time in relationships, or do you think that was off from the beginning? Do you know when people don't understand each other?
Yeah, when we do an area of attachment theory, this is something where I will be a geek and share a lot of our behaviours, our family members, what we've seen, how we've grown up. They influence how they even structure how we then see a relationship.
Cool.
Like when I've just had that meeting online with a social worker, she said, Kai gets to see you guys successfully. So of course he'll want that. And you says, well, you end up being a byproduct of your environment. Well, we're the opposites from that, because I grew up in a domestic violent house and my dad left. And then my mum was a single parent. One of the things that came from that is how powerful she was. She has a job to do. She parented. That was like a survival for her. So I'm part of that behaviour when I parent, or some of my behaviours, and you're laughing because I always joke, and she'll be listening to this at some point, I'm a tamer version of my mum. But
it's a control thing sometimes. I think that's not a negative, but sometimes it's about you need that control. But I don't think I always need that control. I'm kind of a lot more laid back in the relationship, where you'll always be there to, even like, the structure, like you tell me how bad I am on timing, because I'm like, yeah, I've got loads of time. And realistically, I've not got none.
Which follows from your dad.
Yeah.
So we do.
Like, again, I've never grown up with my dad. So, like, my mum used to always say, I don't know how you can be a lot like your dad to say that you've never lived with him. So, we never have done. So, for, like, my mum, she's created me as, like, in the good ways. And obviously, I've got probably the other part where I feel like I'm, if it's drunk or not, funny with... all the little things back, in between, very laid back. Yeah. So all of them are like my dad's. My mum's always taught me like the kindness part. So she's always generated where, like, don't stare at the unfortunate. Just always make friends with the ones what's alone, which I always do.
I think a lot of your paying forward comes as that from your mum and your behaviours, and you are one of the nicest people anyone could ever meet. She's made me nicer, but then I've still got that element of
edge,
my upbringing, where I am stubborn and maybe a little bit abrupt sometimes, but you have made me a nicer person. And yeah, so one of the couples I was doing some work on, and you guys will relate to this, take what you need from it, messaging, and we'll work through it as well. But I've got a couple come to me, they're in conflict quite a bit, and how the one would resolve conflict because of her upbringing, what she saw was you stand there, you argue, you thrash it out. Sometimes she saw physical violence, but then the next day it was forgotten about, so they'd move on.
Okay.
How the other person in the relationship dealt with conflict because of her upbringing, she would go. She would leave for a week and come back and then expect to resolve it. And that's when I shared with them, treat that like a language, like a dictionary. That fighting is a Spanish dictionary. You running is French, Portuguese, whatever you want it to be. But it's not working because neither of you are getting a result. You're not resolving anything.
I think that's a lot of couples, though, because a lot of couples do that.
And this is why it's such an easy message. Are you willing in your relationship to learn a new dictionary? That is it. That's as simple as it is. Are you willing to listen instead of just talk? Are you willing to park the argument because the other person can't deal with conflict? Are you willing to sit still instead of run off because that person feels abandoned? And I like the attachment theory stuff. But if couples are listening, or one part of the couple's listening and goes, I need to thrash it out, and he runs off or she runs off, that leaves me feeling vulnerable. Get him or her to listen to this part of, I need you to just sit still and listen. And it might resolve a few things quicker.
But sometimes we're in the bar over the weekend and they've just had an argument with the missus just so that can be in the bar.
Yeah. But it's about learning the language of saying.
But how do they work with that?
it's almost like, what do you need? So you need to create an argument for you to be allowed to go out on a Saturday. It's not healthy in the start. So how about Friday's date day, or Friday she's out or he's out, Saturday the other person's out, or they're both out together. If he's creating an argument just to leave to go, then there's a miscommunication there. Because healthfully, I should be able to say to you, Vic, can you do training tonight with the boys because I want to go to the bar, or I want to go for dinner, or I want to do this. And unless that hinders you and the kids, you would typically go, of course. If I'm being unreasonable and saying, Vic, I'm going on a 12-hour bender, I'm turning my phone off, I'd expect you to tell me I'm being out of order.
But that's what I'm saying is in couples, that's what they tend to do. So for the person at home, how does he or she communicate with the person what's always running?
Without going to therapy,
well, just
try and sit down and say, when you do this, it makes me feel this. Because sometimes they're not even considering the feelings of that person.
Yeah.
And the other dynamic is sometimes how old-fashioned we still live with the male provides, so the woman's expected to stay at home. You know, that doesn't wash with me. So when I have couples, you know, man and woman couples, that dynamic, and I'm not saying I'm always on the female side because sometimes it's the opposite. But we don't live in the olden days anymore. The male doesn't have to just provide. The woman doesn't have to stay at home. Find a new language, because what has always worked doesn't mean it will work in 10 years' time.
So it's just a communication tip for us. So for the person who's at home, just to say, look, even ask, are you planning on going out all night? Because if she or he knows whoever's at home, are they planning on running and going off, then at least they know. And it's that communication of actually just knowing the truth. Sometimes, obviously, the truth's never always there, because they do want to just argue to stick to the pub. But it is about the communication for people to sit down and just talk it through, see where they are going, what they're doing.
Yeah, there was a guy at the bar the other day, and he's at the bar and he's looking at his phone, and he's like, you can tell he's ignoring a call. And we're like therapists at the bar anyway. So I'm like, what's up? He went, she's been a nose. I says, why? Because he's been out 3 hours longer than he said he would. And he's not a child, so it's not like he should be on a curfew. But be honest, if you're not going to be home for bedtime with the kids, say it as it is.
That's what.
Don't roll in at 11, 12 o'clock, hanging out your arse, then expecting to be in the doghouse. And then you just fight for 3 or 4 days because that gap becomes bigger. Say it how it is. And that goes for the person sat at home waiting as well. Actually, when I'm sat at home, I feel alone, vulnerable, like I'm a single parent, whatever it be. You know, there is resolution.
Just so the other one hears each other. But it's, how many times did that person phone him now? Like, it must have been
23, I think he had.
But again, if you go on the days of the week, how many times has been in the club?
Yeah.
He's in there every day, and she's at home.
And
so
this is
kind of that's the harsh thing, is that he doesn't want to go on to the conflict. So he's kind of still running. And then when she just calms down and goes, okay, yeah, just come back home, she daren't say anything, because she knows that he'll just then go back to the pub. So it is where they try to talk and they try to communicate. But again, like you've said before, one's talking Spanish and one's talking...
Throw the dictionary at him. You know what I mean? Listen, we need a new language, because, again, them 23 missed calls, she looks like the crazy one. If you only answered the first or second time and told her your plan, she doesn't have to sit and call you 23 times, because she knows what you're doing. And so that's the difference of communication, connection. Something that actually we're quite passionate with through this platform is bringing people back.
Trust is a big one, especially when she doesn't know where he is or what he's doing. Yeah, he's not doing anything wrong in the club. He's just getting pissed as what he would do. But it's the trust of, is he in the club, because she doesn't actually know, because he's not answering his phone. If he just says, I am actually here, I'm just in the club, I'll be home. But the problem, what he does, he goes, I'll be home in an hour. and he knows full well he's going to be there till close.
Mm.
So again, it's just a therapy base, and people need to sometimes listen to therapists.
Yeah, and again, writing, messaging, calling, sit here, because everybody's dynamics are different. So this 1 20-minute episode isn't going to cover it for most of you,
No.
but the dictionaries, you can see as couples sit there and they're coming quite vulnerable normally. Nobody really comes to couples therapy at their best. They come at their worst when they're at crisis. And you often say the dictionary, and one, if not both, sort of paused with that idea. Is it so simple? Do you want to learn a new language? That's it. What do you need from me? Am I willing to give that to you? Then it works. If you say something that I'm not willing to meet, then no therapist can change the concept of that.
But that's it. But then, because you're not willing to change, then your language will always stay your language, and you're not willing to take on board how they're feeling. So that's the other thing. So it's okay, because then what you're doing is putting it onto somebody else's terms. So then the other person then has to sit down and go, well, where do I go from now? Where do I go from here? If they're not willing to change, or you're saying the other person has to change, but you're not willing to still make that change. And I think that's the hardest thing of the shift between.
Then
two
that
people.
person, like that couple in hindsight the other day, she will probably tolerate that for another 5 years before eventually she says, I'm gone. I'm gone. And people are normally done way before they say they're done. So if he will not change the language, she will tolerate it. I think she's probably got another 3, 4, 5 years in her tolerating it, like some of you guys, until eventually something will happen and you'll go, I deserve more. When we talk about positive affirmations and so on, you can say you deserve more, but often people don't. They settle for less, often because of financial or kids, money stresses. Sometimes it's easier to be with them than it is to be single. Eventually you'll learn your worth. And whether it's episode 2 to episode 60, they will all link into this, is your worth. Your self-esteem will get shot by staying in that relationship. One day something will trigger and you'll realise you deserve more. And that person that wasn't willing to change the language will be the very person crying at the end of it. But it is going to be Valentine's Day. I've learnt a new language. I'm still learning a new language. What are you laughing at?
I'm not talking a different language.
I'm learning my language.
There you go.
Like, you're good anyway, aren't you? Like, I sometimes need to be nicer.
You're nice anyway.
But as for Valentine's, yes.
Need to be nicer.
There's something in there.
On Valentine's, we've not done anything for Valentine's forever.
I know, and you know what? I was in town with my boy the other day. How can I say to him, be a gentleman, gift, be nice, be this?
It's got 2 days.
No,
3 days.
You can't buy me something back just because I said it. Because without this, I wouldn't have said it.
You might get a card.
But that's fine, because I've got loads of birthday cards already before it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going away and we're blessed. And we do date.
Yeah.
I've got a really good date in mind in March.
Cool. Well, we're going snowboarding next week. With the boys.
So the next one will be at the top of a mountain, maybe with a beer, snowy. But if it takes Valentine's to tell someone you love them, then use it. But don't use Valentine's Day to only tell them. Yeah. That's what I was ranting about.
Tell them every single day, every morning, every night.
I love you.
And I love you too.
And you might say we're cheesy little assholes. I'm good. Blessed. So, yeah. Guys, be safe.
Have a nice week.
See you later.
See you soon. Bye.